The December of 1970 in Poland was a dark time, with dozens killed and over 1,000 wounded in mass riots. It was a terrible cost. The protests ignited when the government callously announced significant price hikes on essential food and consumer goods. Spontaneous rallies erupted in factories across the nation, and these quickly escalated into a widespread general strike. Amidst the chaos, anti-Soviet slogans echoed, and mass prayers filled the air as the strikers fervently begged God to keep the army out of the escalating conflict.
The Catholic Church in Poland, you see, they never accepted the communist or Soviet regime at all.
It seems the prayers simply didn't work. Unfortunately, after the demonstrations escalated into full-blown riots and arson, the army and special forces were called in to intervene. The protesters were brutally beaten back with batons and tear gas, but they fiercely resisted the authorities. In Gdansk, the protesters even managed to seize a tank. Tragically, they had to open fire on the protesters with machine guns.
The protests of the Polish workers escalated to such a significant point that the Soviet authorities felt compelled to force their comrades, their Polish colleagues, to finally sit down at the negotiating table and engage in meaningful discussions with the protesters in order to resolve the ongoing issues.
After negotiations, the authorities canceled price hikes and wages, pensions, and peasant benefits increased. Moreover, the 70s strike led to a change of power. Edward Gierek became the first secretary attempting economic reforms. Initially, things went well, aided by generous subsidies from the USSR.
The Soviet Union, as part of the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance, invested heavily in the country. They built many enterprises, and there was significant housing construction, which helped many people.
As Polish citizens' salaries increased, so did their well-being, and the country really became a model showcase for the entire socialist bloc.
It was the golden age of the Polish economy. Even now, all the polls show that when people are asked which period they liked most in Poland, like how we all love the Brezhnev era, right? Well, they love the 70s.
But before long, those high wages, when combined with those fixed prices, really backfired on the Polish people. The problem was that because of the low productivity, industry just couldn't keep up with the increase in consumption and overall wealth. Now, in a capitalist country, this situation would have quickly led to inflation. But here in Poland, severe shortages began to emerge. For example, you often had to wait as long as 3 years just to buy a car, which meant that used cars were frequently sold for twice as much as brand new ones. The crisis was worsened by the many loans that Poland actively took from Western countries. The country's external debt grew rapidly because,
yes, German bankers said Moscow reps had private meetings with them. They claimed we were giving Poland too much money, more than they could handle. The bankers questioned how Poland could repay such a large sum, and how anyone would collect on that debt. It seemed risky.
when the hour of reckoning finally came, it turned out there was absolutely no money left in the treasury. The West flatly refused to grant Poland any further loans. As a result, the standard of living began to fall dramatically. Imports dried up completely, and store shelves emptied out rapidly. In response, the government introduced ration cards, first for sugar and then for meat.
When meat rationing started, it caused public outrage, especially since it was hard to buy even with the cards. The meat you got wasn't high quality. It was scraps and bones.
As time went on, rationing expanded to cover almost everything imaginable. We're talking butter, milk, flour, grains, pasta, alcohol, cigarettes, coffee, sweets, and even lard. And it didn't stop there. Manufactured goods were next, from essential shoes to crucial school supplies. People even queued for toilet paper. It got so bad that the government even had to ration the ration cards themselves. Gasoline was also heavily rationed during this time. To get gas, you needed a special tag that was linked to your car's license plate number. For instance, if your license plate ended in the number 1, you were only allowed to fill up your tank on the 1st, 11th, and 21st of the month. In an attempt to resolve the deepening crisis, the government once again tried to raise prices on goods, which unfortunately only led to even more widespread protests, this time spearheaded by the future Polish president Lech Walesa. People in Poland fondly remember Walesa mainly because of his funny oxymorons, which they called Wales Alex. People really loved quoting them all the time. Here are some examples. After the rallies of 1980, the party made concessions to the union, which was headed by Walesa, but the country failed to overcome the crisis. A year later, martial law had to be imposed in Poland. Generals under the leadership of Wojciech Jaruzelski were able to temporarily stabilize the situation. Rationing for food and manufactured goods was gradually abolished. Trade unions went underground.
As a result of the introduction of the state of emergency, the leaders of this trade union were arrested, but not for long. Jaruzelski, he was not a dictator. That is, they sat there for a little while, calmed down, and after a while they began to release them. But they gained very great authority among the population.
After martial law was lifted, the authorities had to hold elections, which the opposition won, largely due to the fact that the fight against communism was actively supported by Western intelligence services. The socio-political system changed in the country, and Poland followed the Western path.